People who lost their jobs by going off on a customer. What is your story? Story 1. I didn't say this, but I saw it happen. Working at Burger King many years ago, I was working the drive-thru register, which was close enough to the front registers that I could hear conversations. One of my coworkers was taking an order from a lady who kept asking how much her total was, and then canceling food on it and changing her mind. I guess she was trying to keep under a certain dollar amount. Well, at the Burger King I worked at, any canceled food on an order needed a manager's password thanks to one who stole money by putting in someone's order, telling them the total, and then canceling out the order and pocketing the money. So the manager had come by 3 or 4 times at that point. This was during dinner time, mind you, so there was a line of customers out the door waiting to order. Finally, my coworker pulled out a pad of paper and a calculator. He started writing this woman's order down and totaling it out by hand. The woman asked him why he was doing that, and he told her when you make up your mind about what you want, then he'll put it in the register. This pissed off the lady, so she grabbed the notebook and tried to hit my coworker with it. He snatched it back from her and told her get the out. My manager was only going to write him up for it since the manager agreed that the lady absolutely deserved it, but my manager had to follow company policy, but he already had 2 write-ups on file so she had to fire him. Edit. Oh hey, my first gold. Story 2. Many a year ago I worked at a home improvement store called Menards. I was a cart pusher, which was nice as I was outside all the time. Anyway, we gather about 25 to 30 shopping carts together and push them up to the entrance where they are stored inside. Now to get them there we do have to cross the main drive of the parking lot in front of the store. We always stop and let customers drive by. So as I push the carts up I stop because I see a guy in a pretty nice SUV. He is actually stopped in front of the entrance. Maybe he dropped someone off, I do not know. So I'm waiting to see if he drives off and he then looks at me and waves me across. Looks like he wanted to finish a call he had gotten or something. So I wave back and start pushing the carts across. I am on the other side when some clips me across the shoulder blades and it stung somewhat and pushed me forward. And at the same time I heard glass shatter. I turn around and the guy in the SUV clipped me with his side view mirror. It had swung closed and shattered the window in the door, and I'm just standing there wide-eyed. 2 seconds later the guy gets out of his car swearing up a storm at me and how I'm a low-life piece of and how I'm going to pay for a new window and that I'm not going to get anywhere in life because I broke his window. Now I'm the type of person that if I was the reason he'll take the blame and fix the problem. But this guy hit me. I blew up on him for about 5 minutes before a manager finally had the guts to come over and pull me away. I didn't have to pay for a new window as it was on video, but I lost my job because we are not supposed to yell and cuss at the customer. Edit. Holy New Year and Reddit gold. Thanks guys. Story 3. I didn't get fired, but I was written up and yelled at management. It was the reason I quit a week later. I am in my early 40s for fun. I took a part-time job at a Legoland Discovery Center. I love Lego and love kids. It was a blast most of the time. However, at Legoland, employees build their name tags out of Lego bricks and attach minifigs. Kids who visit can trade minifigs with employees. The rule is that we have to trade because it's fun for the kids. Great. The only problem is that the center I worked at didn't supply any good minifigs. We just built our own from the build of fig buckets. I worked in the photo and entertainment departments, and noticed that lots of our guests would bring in their extra minifigs looking to trade, but were disappointed by the selection. So I began to buy tons of the mystery minifigs and had a large collection of my own at home. Each weekend, I put a bunch in my pockets and put them on my name tag throughout the day so that I could trade. I liked having Ninjago or Simpsons or whatever. I wanted kids to leave happy about their trade and feeling like they got something special. Most weeks I spent 75 or more on minifigs for trading. On May the 4th, I pulled out all my personal Star Wars minifigs because I knew we would be getting a lot of Star Wars fans that day. I had Vader and many Stormtroopers, etc. This woman came in with a 3-year-old girl and insisted that I give her my Stormtrooper. She didn't have anything to trade, but I smiled and gave it to her. Then the mom went and took a minifigs piece from the build tables and made her daughter trade with me for my Vader. I traded but was irritated because I only trade one of my personal ones per kid. There were lots of employees to trade with. The mom just wanted her kid to have my nice ones. The lady goes on to another area and in comes a group of likely Star Wars fans. One of the girls had a Ninjago minifig in her hand that she had brought from home. She was looking for someone to trade with and was headed over to my section. I put Admiral Akbar, a fairly rare one you can only get from the X-Wing fighter build set on my tag along with Leia. Excited thinking that I'm going to make their day. In swoops the lady who demand that I trade all of my figures to her kid who has 3 minifig pieces. I politely refuse and suggest that she ask the employee a couple feet away since we had previously traded twice already. She got very angry and began screaming at me because she had gone around the center and no one else had anything good. My manager came over and made me give her all of my minifigs, even the ones I still had in my pockets. I was written up for refusing to trade and not caring about the guest experience. I was so pissed because I cared very much about the guest experience. Not the pushy parent experience, but the experience of the kid who just loves Lego, and that's why I spent so much of my own money to make sure they left with something cool in their pockets. Edit. Wow, I'm amazed so many people care about this and Lego. I still love Lego, didn't mean to disparage the company, plus, Legoland Discovery Centers are owned by a different company. Edit. Gold. I'm humbled. I don't know how to process that. Thank you, kind Redditor. Story 4. It wasn't me but Eve been told about it. Some guy just passed his training for a call center and a few days in, he answers the phone to a customer and they get into an argument. The argument goes on for nearly an hour and when the customer hung up, the guy called him back to continue the argument. The guy was in his late 50s and lost his job very quickly after. Story 5. Not me, but my mother. She was working at an upscale cocktail lounge in Arlington, Virginia, just out of college, fancy place, all DC businessmen. It was common for large groups of men to come in and get absolutely wasted. One night, a guy decided, after a few cocktails, that it would be hilarious to untie the wrap skirt that was part of her uniform. Bad idea. My mother was furious and dumped an entire tray of martinis on his head. She was promptly fired, but still thinks it was worth it. Story 6. A woman came into a charity shop and complained about every single item loudly to the 10 or so customers in there. Along the lines of "This is all. Who pays for this?" Like we're some boutique with clothes from the back of a van. She clearly didn't understand how rarely new clothes still tagged etc. are donated. Then she got in my face about it. I was so angry with her for chasing away the people that came in that I lost my cool. There was nobody left except her since she'd ranted them into leaving. I told her to get out and I didn't give about the clothes or her opinions. She screams her way out of the shop, broadcasting it to everyone on the street. She came back once the manager was off their break and complained again, so I lost my job fairly soon after. I can't blame them, I'd have done the same. Story 7. I used to work at pizza place in a small town when I was a teenager. One night I took a phone order from some idiot woman. It went like this: "Me, thank you for calling pizza place. May I take your order?" Yes. ID like a large pizza, half pepperoni, half sausage and half black olives. Me, okay, did you want the toppings combined or separated? No, I want half pepperoni, half sausage and half black olives. Me, okay, so you want 13 pepperoni, 13 sausage and 13 black olives. No, I want half pepperoni, half sausage and half black olives. Me, I understand the toppings that you want, but I'm not understanding how you want us to put the toppings on your pizza. Do you want them separated by thirds, combined together, or do you mean put half the amount that we usually put on? What's so hard to understand? I want half pepperoni, half sausage and half black olives. Me, lady, there's only two halves to a pizza. I want to speak to your manager. I got fired on the spot. It was easier for the manager to just hire another person than it was to lose a customer in a small town. Oh, and the lady wanted the toppings divided into thirds. She told the manager the same thing and he just went with her math. They also got it for free. Story 8. Obligatory. It was my coworker, but I was like 5 feet away. We worked in the produce section of Safeway. He had gotten in like 5 minutes prior and was obviously in a bad mood when a customer comes up and starts complaining about her fruit. He tries the normal talking points, but the lady is being a... Finally he just loses it and yells, "Fuck off, you stupid." He throws his apron at her and leaves the store. Never heard from him again. That was also the day I worked my first 16-hour shift. Story 9. Lost my position at a vet clinic. Story goes like this: woman brought in her 5-year-old dog that had diarrhea for the past week, was untreated for it. She was tired of the dog messing in the house, so instead of having the dog treated for the condition, she decided she would rather just have the dog put down. I proceeded to call her a dumb while explaining to her the responsibilities that are involved when you decide you want to have a pet. I was fired. I never looked back. Story 10. I have a speech impediment, and back when I worked at Starbucks, this young African-American kid would come in every day after school and order caramel frap. Every time I told him it would be $3.50, he would laugh uproariously and ask me to say it again. After a few weeks of this, he'd start bringing in his buddies as well. Each one would order the exact same drink, then ask me to keep repeating the price for them again and again. After a few months, I broke down. "You boys should know how much the drink is by now." My manager overheard and claimed I was being racist by calling them "you boys." Even though they were all middle school age, anyways, I still see the kids around town and they always shout at me, "How much are those caramel fraps again?" Story 11. Worked at GameStop as a GA game advisor. Some guy came in and had a figurative load of games, over 100 to trade, all with games and cases mismatched. It took about 45 minutes to process his ticket. When I told him the total, it was low because GameStop, and also they were all old, scratched games. This man then proceeded to try negotiate with me, to which I kept telling him I can't change the price, which only made him angrier and louder. Eventually he yelled, "Listen, you stupid, I need at least 300 for all of this and you're going to give it to me. First of all, I don't even have the ability to change the price at all. Second of all, my coworker proceeded to put all of his games in a bag, walk outside and toss them into the parking lot, and told the guy to take his racist cousin somewhere else and to off. Store manager came out of the back room and fired him dead on the spot. The guy stormed out, and the second he left, my manager said, "Jesus, what was his problem? Alright, get back to work." My coworker didn't get fired, it was just theatrics for the racist. I felt like an idiot for just standing there, but it was taking everything I had to not hop the counter and hit the guy. Story 12. My sister was the manager of a women's clothing store. At the time she was dealing with some personal issues regarding depression and anxiety, so she wasn't in the greatest state of mind to begin with. A customer came in with a pair of pants that had ripped along the inner thigh seams, which were well past the return period and had clearly been worn washed. The customer, who was a larger woman, went off on a sales associate, stating she had only tried the pants on and that caused the seams to rip and she wanted a refund. She brought the associate to tears with her ranting and finally demanded the manager, "My sister, enter my sis," and the customer starts yelling at her too. Sis promptly tells the customer that her pants split because she was a fat ass, she wouldn't get a refund, and to take her fat out of the store and never come back. Sis then went in the back, called her boss and quit before she could be fired. Her boss actually was willing to let her stay, but she chose to leave anyway until she could get her depression issues under control. Took a solid year, but she's much happier and healthier now. Story 13 was a stockroom assistant at a well-known fashion chain in the UK-US. Didn't go off on a customer, but I well wish I did now. Happened to be behind tills changing hangers boxes when a customer explodes at the trainee cashier demanding to know where her order was. She's screaming her head off at how it's unacceptable I paid extra, and how she made a specific detour to collect her package. She had ordered a jacket in another branch and had paid for next-day delivery to the store I worked in. Customers aren't supposed to come collect their orders until they get an email saying their order is ready to collect. The poor cashier started last week and is basically cowering for dear life. I take over and ask to see her email, which she explains she doesn't need because she paid extra, so her package must be here. After 10 minutes of me trying to explain why her package isn't ready to collect and her trying to challenge Krakatoa, she storms off shouting that she'll be having words with the guy who owns our company. I hand back to the cashier and carry on with my day. The next day I'm prepping our delivery, and I get called for a meeting with the store manager. I'm told I'm being let go for gross misconduct, specifically being unhelpful and challenging to customers. Turns out the customer was a journalist for the Daily Mail, and she called our head of company, who she did indeed know personally, and got me fired specifically. TLDR tried to reason with a Daily Mail journalist. Got fired for her stupidity. Yay for logic. Edit. Her jacket did indeed come an hour after she left the store. She came back with her email. Sweet victory. Story 14. This didn't happen to me, but I witnessed it. A friend of mine used to work in a pizza place. I'd hang out in the lobby playing their Pac-Man machine. Yeah, it was a long time ago anyway. My friend is taking orders when a guy storms in, screaming about wrong toppings. He removes the pie from the box and frisbees it into my friend's face. My two-time Detroit Golden Gloves champion friend. What followed was the worst beating I've ever seen one man take. My friend lost his job and got jail time out of it. Story 15. I didn't get fired but got a written warning for this. I was working chat tech support for a web host. Customer chatted in complaining of slowness, claiming our servers were having issues. I do all the standard steps and we determined that his ISP is having issues, standard tracered, etc. He doesn't believe me and becomes obstinate. So I end the chat by saying you're wrong. About 10 minutes later I get a new chat. I see the account name and the question. It was the same guy with the same question. Without letting him say anything I write you're still wrong and close the chat. If I wasn't one of the better techs I know I would have been fired. Story 16. I wasn't the one fired but was witness to the whole ordeal. It was painful to watch, and even though Eve left the company for more than 10 years I still stay clear of the area in case anyone spots me and asks what actually did happen that day. So it's around the back end of 05. I'm working part-time at this printing company while at college. Job's fairly boring but reasonable easy, and the wages were decent, and as a bonus was within walking distance of my house. Sweet. This company is responsible for making the flyers you receive in the post from your banks and insurance companies, etc., both the junk and the actual new cards, etc. Anyways, I'd been there about a year, and a maintenance guy who'd started a few months before me had gotten to be friends since we were on the same shift. In the same area playing the same games and stuff outside of work. Mark was a generally easygoing guy, but when need would work like a monster. We had just received an order for a new set of flyers to be set out pretty much nationwide. The final print order number was something like 12 mil flyers, and as soon as the guys came out the print shop, he piped up saying the paper quality was too low for the folded paper leaflets to be feed through the machines into the envelopes at the speeds required for the completion date. He asked if there was any chance we could use slightly larger envelopes or thinner leaflets. He was told repeatedly no. They finalized the style and dimensions of the leaflet. On the newer machines it's okay, we only get say 2 to 3 failures, crumpled or torn leaflets every 10k envelopes filled. The older machines however are shredding to bits. If we run the machines at 100 they'll run if we are lucky for 5 minutes before jamming. Running them at 60 of normal speed does stop the problems however. Mark told the bosses straight away what was going wrong, and why and what had done to fix it. The customer was told there would be slight delay. He kicked off saying it didn't take as long last time and he wants it done pronto. So we cranked the machines up again. My machine was reasonably new, I could sneak away using it at 85 since the raw chaos happening behind me masked the fact I was running slow. After a week of battling non-stop jams and overheating, Mark was fed up. He was on his knees stripping yet more paper out of a machine when the customer popped to the factory for inspection. Mark goes up the guy and asks why for this job. It was on very short notice and very inflexible. Most jobs we had a bit of play on the leaflet sizing color and generally 3 to 8 weeks to print around 10 mil. We had gotten 7 weeks to do 12 mil this time. The customer immediately blows up in Mark's face telling him he should be happy for the work and to get back to it ASAP. Mark takes it okay and tried to tell him it would have been faster and would have saved thousands of his money and labor if he had let them make a few tweaks. At this point the customer pokes Mark in the chest with his pen and goes, "I'll not be told my job by some spanner jockey now shhhh," and back to work. Mark doesn't say anything. He does go scarlet with a look of pure rage that I've never seen on anyone that hasn't resulted in violence immediately after it. He then grabbed the customer's tie, yanks it down into the feeding gears on the machine that he had just been stripping down. These machines have a step-by-step feed button for when testing a new job, so he hammered the button 3 times, pulling about 10 inches of this guy's tie in while he screamed. As he turned away he mashed the emergency stop button and then kicked it off the machine, locking it up. He then storms out never to be seen again. I cut the customer free. It'd take another 2 maintenance guys 9 hours to completely strip the machine and get what's left of the tie out. Story 17. Luckily I didn't lose my job for this, as the manager on shift was pretty lenient and agreed with me. So I worked at a pretzel place where you hand make everything. I had just finished rolling and bounced over to register to help out a customer. Lady asked, "Hi, can I get your salted nuggets, but are they fresh?" I knew for a fact they were. I had just rolled them myself and put them in the warmer. "Indeed, ma'am, I'd be happy to make you fresher ones if you want to wait 5 to 10 minutes. But I literally put these in here less than 5 minutes ago." She seemed happy and content. "Sure, I'll take those, thanks." Not even 5 minutes later she comes back hollering at me that I'm a liar, that I must be stupid because the nuggets were hard, which I knew she was the liar because I had just made everything. What gets me is she came back even though she came back with less than half of the cup left. Must have been terrible, right? So after I get called a liar or a moron, and she had the audacity to demand a refund and new fresh nuggets another 3 times. I turned to a coworker and I said, which I quote, "Someone needs to help this because I'm not loud enough for her to hear," and I stormed out of the store to the back room to cool off. Story 18. Had a customer that for at least a year came into our store and was a master tactician in getting free goods by making up complaints against our staff. He would do all sorts of maneuvers like wanting products he knew we didn't carry to making up complaints about our staff to even complaining that he had been charged incorrectly. If this guy was in the store, good luck if you were another customer. He would up all the oxygen in the place and demand service from multiple people at the same time. He got reduced prices and free merchandise and tons of coupons for his efforts. My boss would never challenge this guy or protect his own staff from being exposed to losing their job to a customer who would happily see a member of our crew fired so he could get 5 off his next purchase. My boss wasn't entirely at fault since this was a giant corporation, and he was merely towing the fabled "the customer is always right" mantra. I was already planning on leaving for a better opportunity and was going to give notice of resignation 1 week when this customer started giving me an incredibly difficult time about an issue I had nothing to do with and couldn't help him with. It was extremely busy and he was holding everyone up with his bullshit. I made a quick value judgment, realized I was already out the door and the only thing I was still there to do was to honor my appropriate resignation notice. I had no designs of ever working for this horrible company or any company like it ever again. I found myself in a unique situation and wasn't going to let the opportunity pass. This guy had made life difficult for all of us for a long time. Payback time. I cut this guy off mid-sentence and just went off on him in front of a number of customers and part of our staff. I told him he was nothing more than a cheapskate grifter and told him I would no longer recognize him as a living, breathing member of our species. Then I told him to go himself. The look on his face was so beautiful. The entire store fell into silence and I just stared him down. He asked to speak to my manager and I doubled down by talking over his head, inviting the customer behind him to elbow up to the counter. I apologized to the new customer about the bad behavior of the guy who, at this point, had steam coming out of his ears. Eventually, when he realized he was getting nowhere waiting on me, he stormed off to find a manager. I finished my shift. I came back in the following day, was intercepted by a corporate manager I had rarely seen, taken upstairs and was getting lectured. I interrupted the scolding, revealed my intentions to leave this place, and quit right there. I got a lot of high fives from the other members of the staff on my way out the door. Story 19. Didn't get fired for this one, and it was glorious. Used to work in this little Thai place in town, and we had these teenagers who came in every Sunday, were rude and demanding, and tipped 0 one day. They're exceptionally awful to a new waitress, reducing her to tears, and so my boss calls me over. Next time they come you take them, and you earn that 0 tip. I do a bit of a double take. She can't possibly mean what I think she means. You mean? She nods and gives me this smile that is equal parts devious and smug. A week later they come in 5 minutes into my shift. She seats them in my section, smiles at me and tells me to do my worst. Here is a fairly detailed account of the wonderful 45 minutes that followed. I wait a good 5 minutes before going to greet them and bring waters. They're ready to order. I don't have a pen. You'll be right back, I promise. I loudly tell my manager I'm going out for a smoke, and then go power smoke a cigarette. Takes me about 90 seconds. They're my only table and I'm not handling food yet, so I don't wash my hands. I reek of smoke. I take her order. Pad Thai no bean sprouts like always. As he opens his mouth to tell me hell have the same, I give him the just a minute finger and pull out my phone. I text my fiancé and ask if he wants to get dinner from my place or his tonight. I take his order. I somehow misunderstand and write down extra bean sprouts. Their food comes up while I'm telling my boss and the other waitress a story about my cat. I finish telling the story before I get their food. I bring it out and walk away as they're starting to complain about the sprouts. About 5 minutes after they get the food I get a second table. One is a customer from a former job of mine and we spend a few minutes catching up when I go to greet them. The zeros try to signal me as I leave the table, but I stare straight ahead. I come back for my new table's order and see that their glasses are missing roughly 4 sips of water. This simply won't do. I hang their ticket and come back to fill their glasses. I look at Zero's empty glasses, look the guy straight in the eye, smile, and walk away. He stops me as I'm walking over with apps for my new table and asks for boxes. I tell him he'll grab them right after I drop off this food. I play a game of 2048 all the way up to 1024 before bringing them one small box. They ask for 2 bigger boxes and the check. I promise I'll be right back, and then ask my boss to keep an eye on the table I like while I go smoke again. Obviously I don't usually take this many smoke breaks, especially not this early into a shift. I come back and my boss tells me they came to her for boxes and to pay and told her they're never coming back. She voids their check, gives me the $20-some, and tells me I earned it. TLDR boss gave me 20 to give over the top bad service to awful regulars. Story 20 Not me somehow, but one of my coworkers. She was towards the end of a long day, and was the only register open. A customer came through, making lots of special requests, and being particularly rude when she tried to ensure everything. Coworker had enough, closed her register, moved to the next one over, and asked for the next customer. Story 21 I used to cut hair. I was cutting a lattice hair when the child of lady waiting started running around the shop. I told the child several times to go sit with her mother and asked her mother to please keep her child seated next to her. Well, in the middle of cutting around my client's ear, the child ran into my work area, ran into me and almost caused me to cut my client. I looked at the child and firmly said, "You need to go sit down with your mother now." Well, her mom didn't like that and came running back to me and yelled, "Don't tell my child what to do, I'm her parent." I responded with, "Then act like it." She glared at me, grabbed her child and stormed out. Everyone in the shop was relieved the child had left. A few days later the owner came and tried to fire me for it, but luckily there were enough other stylists and clients that came to my defense about the danger of the situation, and I only got a write-up. Story 22 I didn't get fired, but I got scolded and written up at the chain hardware store for customer interaction. Formatting will, okay, so imagine we're at the paint desk. A young couple meets me and asks for neutral blue color in our most popular paint, eggshell finish. No problem there. I tell them to come back in a little bit. I make it and toss it in the shaker. Another guy loudly walks up to the other end of the desk and wants 2 gallons in our paint in some shitastic beige color in a semi-gloss finish because his trailer isn't flossy enough. Whatever, I make it and put it in the shaker, all the while he's talking to his wife and whoever else was with him. Remember the blue paint for the young couple, it's done. So I stick it on the desk, their color card on top of it for identification near where they were standing, clearly away from Taco. Should be fine, that's what I figured. So I go back to whatever I was doing. Next thing I hear is Taco nearly screaming, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, what are you doing?" I glare at him because he's making a scene and I ask him, still politely, what he's yelling about. He says, ever so loudly, "This your first day? Get me someone who knows what they're doing." Again, I ask what the problem is, since his paint isn't ready yet. He says, "You can't do anything right," I snapped and replied, matching his tone and volume as people is starting to stare. "Oh, this isn't the color you wanted, and oh, this isn't the finish you wanted. Does this look like semi-gloss to you? It isn't even the type of paint you wanted, nope. Then I guess this isn't for you, is it?" And I ripped the paint away from him and gave it to the couple you was patiently waiting behind this retard. "Yours will done in a minute." And he of course cried to the managers like the fat hairy baby he is, who of course sided with him and gave him his paint for free and then tried to fire me over something they had 0 witnesses to. 1010. This gay earth. I was blacklisted from Sonic Drive-In for standing up for myself. The store in Oak Hill was shut down and everyone fired because the manager was busted selling pot out of the trunk of his car. I was one of the dream team of hand-picked Sonic employees selected from around the city to bring the store back up to speed. Our new manager had the initials JT and he was very proud of the fact that he comes from 5-star fine dining restaurant manager, and this was his first fast food experience. He was strict and that is okay, we were expected to be perfect, but he had a temper. One day he comes in squealing his tires and as soon as he hits the front door, he's screaming and cussing. I'm trying to take orders while releasing the talk button as he's cussing employees, like reverse censoring. When I finish taking the order and turn around to see what is the issue, I notice the other car hop run to the back crying. He turns to me and says, "And you little." So this guy is 5'4" and I'm 6 and in roller skates I roll over to him and stop a bare inch away and in a strong, clear voice I say, "Excuse me. I'm a human being and when you speak to me it will be with decency and respect. Do you understand?" To which he reply, "Give me your apron." So I walk out and go directly to home office and talk to one of the executives, son of the owner, and relate how I love my job. I had worked for 9 different Sonics, won multiple awards, over the last decade and had been invited to VIP movie premiere, featured in the news with his father, the owner. I can no longer work with JT for creating a hostile work environment and asked to be reassigned back to MY store where I had been working. I was told he would call, so he called. Turns out, JT had sold his restaurant as part of a messy divorce and invested several $1 million into the Austin Sonics Association of Franchise Owners, becoming full partner and part owner of almost every Sonic in the city, and had me blacklisted. I can no longer work for Sonic. I tried again to get a job several years later, but I was told they couldn't hire me still. Story 23 I quit. I didn't lose my job, and I didn't explode at the guy, but I was moments away from doing so. It was marathon day and tons of people were out and about and our restroom key got stolen. It was packed butts to nuts, to fire code violation. I literally couldn't open the restroom for anyone. Not even if President Obama, the Pope, my mama and a mama bear walked in needing to go would I be able to will the restroom door open. This was a famous chain cafe. One guy questioned that I was telling the truth and reached into my apron pocket. I was going to kill that guy, but I just walked away and cooled off in the back. When I came out, this guy was making a huge fuss about opening the restroom for him. I told him I couldn't, and he said, "Can't you see I have kids?" I replied, "Can't you see I don't have the key?" Then he just explodes in my face. I was going to push over and knock over him and his baby Courage, but that's when I quit, because this job just made me want to hurt a baby.